Hello, hello. Today I am doing a soft spoken video. This was requested by a viewer. I am just overcoming a cold that I've had for literally weeks. Just will not go away. So if you hear a little stuffiness in my voice, I apologize. This is my first time doing a soft spoken video, so please be, a little kind. So today I'm just going to do a tapping while just picking a random page out of some classics I have and just reading them in soft spoken. I will try not to pick any pages that are near the end, so there's no spoilers, but also these books have been out for hundreds of years, so I don't really think I can be blamed if you do not want to get spoiled and you get spoiled. Yeah. So, I think the first book I'm going to do I'm sorry, I had a weird thing stuck in my throat. First book I'm going to do is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I had to read this book for my class, as the majority of these books I had to read for class because I don't really read classics on their own. I tend to enjoy more, fun books. Just sit by the pool and read, but, decided to do classics, so people actually know the books. Oh, there's a bug. And, might actually understand what I'm reading, because I'm just going to pick a random page, but I enjoyed this book. It wasn't my favorite, but I thought it was good. Okay, I'm just going to pick a random page and just read it. Okay. This is the start of chapter 7. For some reason or another, the house was crowded that night, and the fat Jew manager who met them at the door was beaming from ear to ear with an oily, tremulous smile. He escorted them to the box in a sort of pompous humility, waving his fat, jeweled hands and talking at the top of his voice. Dorian Gray loathed him more than ever. He felt as if he had come to look for Miranda and had been met by Caliban. Lord Henry, upon the other hand, rather liked him. At least he declared he did, and insisted on shaking him by the hand and ensuring that he was proud to meet a man who has discovered a real genius and gone bankrupt over a poet. Hallward amused himself with watching the faces in the pit. The heat was terribly oppressive, and the high sunlight flamed like a monstrous dahlia with petals of yellow fire. The youths in the gallery had taken off their coats and waistcoats and hung them over the side. They managed to talk to each other across the theater and shared their oranges with the tardy girls who sat beside them. Some women were laughing in the pit. Their voices were horribly shrill and discordant. The sound of the popping of corks came from the bar. "What a place to find one's divinity in," said Lord Henry. "Yes," answered Dorian Gray. "It was here I found her, and she is divine beyond all living things. When she acts, you will forget everything. These common rough people, with their coarse faces and brutal gestures, become quite different when she is on stage. They sit silently and watch her. They weep and laugh as she wills them to. She makes them as responsive as a violin. She spiritualizes them, and one feels that they are the same flesh and blood as oneself." "The same flesh and blood as oneself? Oh, I hope not," exclaimed Lord Henry, who was scanning the occupants of the gallery through his opera glass. "Don't pay any attention to him, Dorian," said the painter. "I understand what you mean, and I believe it. I believe in this girl. Anyone you must love must be marvelous, and any girl that has the effect you describe must be fine and noble. To spiritualize one's age, that is something worth doing. If this girl can give a soul to those who have lived without one, if she can create this sense of beauty in people whose lives have been sordid and ugly, if she can strip them of their selfishness and lend them tears for sorrows that are not their own, she is worthy of all your adoration, worthy of the adoration of the world." That is the picture of Dorian Gray. I'm going to do a few pictures, or a few pages from each book, because I don't want this video to be like 10 minutes long, because I like longer videos, so I like to produce longer videos, so I'm going to do a few more pages. Okay. I don't want to spoil anything with this one. Okay, we're on chapter 9. At 9 o'clock in the next morning, his servant came in with a cup of chocolate on a tray and opened the shutters. Dorian was sleeping quite peacefully, laying on his right side with one hand underneath his cheek. He looked like a boy who had just been tired out with play or study. The man had to touch him twice on the shoulder before he woke, and as he opened his eyes, a faint smile passed across his lips, as though he had been lost in some delightful dream. Yet he had not dreamed at all. His night had been untroubled by any images of pleasure or of pain. But youth smiles without any reason. It is one of their chiefest charms. He turned around and leaned upon his elbow, beginning to sip his chocolate. A mellow November sun came streaming into the window. The sky was bright, and there was a genial warmth in the air. It was almost like a morning in May. Gradually, the events of the preceding night crept with silent, blood-stained feet into his brain and reconstructed them with terrible distinctiveness. He winced of the memory of all that had suffered, and for a moment the same feeling of loathing for Basil Howard, I'm not going to say that because it's going to spoil it, but came back to him, and he grew cold with passion. The dead man was still sitting there too, and in the sunlight now. How horrible that was! Such hideous things were for the darkness, not for the day. He felt that if he brooded on what he had gone through, he would grow sickened or grow mad. That was just a half page. Dorian Gray is not a very good guy, if you couldn't tell. Okay. This one is going to be interesting. Okay. If you have a strange quarter of an hour, get Basil to tell you why he won't exhibit your picture. He told me why he wouldn't, and it was a revelation to me. Yes, perhaps Basil too had his secret. He would ask him and try. "Basil," he said, coming over quite close and looking him straight in the face, "we each of us have a secret. Let me know yours, and I shall tell you mine. What was the reason for refusing to exhibit my picture?" The painter shuddered in spite of himself. "Dorian, if I told you, you might like me less than you do, and you would certainly laugh at me. I could not bear you doing any of those two things. If you wish me never to look at your picture again, I am content. I have always you to look at. If you wish the best work I have ever done to be hidden from the world, I am satisfied. Your friendship is dearer to me than any fame or reputation." "No, Basil, you must tell me," insisted Dorian Gray. "I think I have a right to know." His feeling of terror had passed away, and curiosity has taken its place. He was determined to find out Basil Hallward's mystery. Where was I? Oh shoot, I lost where I am. "Let us sit down, Dorian," said the painter, looking troubled. "Let us sit down, and just answer me one question. Have you noticed in the picture something curious, something that probably at first did not strike you, but that relieved itself to you suddenly?" "Basil," cried the lad, clutching the arms of the chair with trembling hands and gazing at him with wild, startled eyes. "I see you did. Don't speak. Wait till you hear what I have to say. Dorian, from the moment I met you, your personality has been the most extraordinary influence over me. I was dominated, soul, brain, and power by you. You become to me the visible incarnation of unseen ideal, whose memory haunts us artists like an exquisite dream. I worshipped you. I grew jealous of everyone to whom you spoke. I wanted to have you all to myself. I was only happy when I was with you. When you were away from me, you were still present in my art. Of course, I had never let you know anything about this. It would have become impossible. You would not understand it. I hardly understood it myself. I only knew that I had seen perfection face to face, and that the world had become wonderful to my eyes. Too wonderful perhaps, for in such mad worship there is peril, the peril of losing them, no less than the peril of keeping them. Weeks on weeks, and I grew more and more absorbed in you. Then came a new development. I had drawn you as a Paris in dainty armor, and an Adonis with huntsman's cloak and polished boar spear, crowned with heavy lotus blossoms, and he sat on the prow of Ardian's barge, gazing across the green turban Nile. You had leant over the pool of some Greek woodland, and seen in the water silent silver the marble of your own face. That is the end of that page. Okay, I think we're going to move on to the next book. Let me move this. Okay. Just ignore that this book looks like it's been destroyed. It was a hand-me-down. So, just going to pick a random page. Okay. "We just come in," said Lenny softly. Curly stared levelly at him. "Well, next time you answer when you're spoken to." He turned toward the door and walked out, and his elbows were still bent out a little. George watched him out, and he turned his back to the swamper. "Say, what the hell he's got in his shoulder? Lenny didn't do nothing to him." The old man looked cautiously at the door to make sure no one was listening. "That's the boss's son," he said quietly. "Curly's pretty handy. He done quite a bit in the ring. He's a lightweight and he's handy." "Well, let him be handy," said George. "You don't have to take after Lenny. Lenny didn't do nothing to him. What's he got against Lenny?" The swamper considered. "Well, tell you what. Curly's like a lot of little guys. He hates big guys. He's all the time picking scraps with big guys. Kind of like he's mad at 'em because he ain't a big guy. You seen little guys like that, ain't you? Always scrappy?" "Sure," said George. "I've seen plenty tough little guys, but this Curly better make no mistakes about Lenny. Lenny ain't handy, but this Curly punk is gonna get hurt if he messes around with Lenny." "Well, Curly's pretty handy," the swamper said skeptically. "Never did seem right to me. Suppose Curly jumps the big guy and licks him. Everybody says what a game guy Curly is, and suppose he does the same thing and gets licked. Then everyone says that the big guy ought to pick on somebody his own size, and maybe they gang up on the big guy." This is my favorite classic I've read. I've read a few. Usually get them from the library, so I don't really have them here, but also I don't really read classics that much. But Of Mice and Men, sorry, I don't think I said it. Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. This one was really good. And it's kind of like old Western talk, so it's kind of hard for me to talk like that. Okay, we're gonna pick another page. Picking another page. Okay. From his pocket, Carlson took a little leather thong. He stepped over it and tied around the old dog's neck. All the men except Candy watched him. Come on, boy, he said gently, and he said apologetically to Candy, he won't even feel it. Candy did not move nor answer him. He twitched the thong. Come on, boy. The old dog got slowly and stiffly to his feet and followed the gently pulling leash. Slim said, Carlson? Yeah. You know what to do? What you mean, Slim? Take a shovel, said Slim shortly. Oh, sure, I get you. He led the dog out into the darkness. George followed to the door and shut the door, set the latch gently in its place. Candy lay rigidly on his bed, staring at the ceiling. Slim said loudly, What if my lead mule's got a bad hoof? Got to get some tar on it. His voice trailed off. It was silent outside. Carlson's footsteps died away. The silence came into the room, and the silence lasted. George chuckled. I bet Lenny's right out there in the barn with his pup. He won't want to come in here no more now that he's got a pup. Slim said, Candy, you can have any of those pups you want. Candy did not answer. The silence fell on the room again, came out of the night and invaded the room. Anybody like to play a little yurch? I'll play out at a few with you guys, said Wit. That was Of Mice and Men. Of Mice and Men. Of Mice and Men. Of Mice and Men. Okay. I literally whispered that whole thing. I was so into it. Oh my god, how long have I been whispering? Oh my god. Okay, I'm so sorry. I didn't even realize. Okay. We're going to do chapter 15. Dr. Seward's diary continued. For a while, sheer anger mastered me. It was all as if he had let me restart that. For a while, sheer anger mastered me. It was all as if he had, during her life, struck Lucy on the face. I smote the table hard and rose up as I said to him, Dr. Van Helsing, are you mad? He raised his head and looked at me, and somehow the tenderness of his face calmed me at once. Would I were, he said, madness were easy to bear compared with truth like this. Oh, my friend, why, think you, did I go so far around? Why it takes so long to tell a simple thing? Was it because I hate you and have hated you all my life? Was it because I wished to give you pain? Was it that I wanted now so late revenge for the time you saved my life and a fearful death? Ah, no. Forgive me, said I, he went on. My friend, it was because I wished to be gentle in breaking it to you. For I know that you have loved that so sweet lady, but even that I do not expect you to believe. It is so hard to accept at once any abstract truth, that we may doubt to be such possible, when we have always believed the know of it. It is more hard still to accept so sad a concrete truth, and it's such a one as Miss Lucy. Tonight I prove it. Dare you come with me? This staggered me. A man does not like to prove such a truth. Byron accepted from the category jealous. Dracula, Dracula, Dracula. That is Dracula. Dracula. Excuse me. Dracula, Dracula. I enjoyed this book. If you want, it's about what you would expect from a Dracula book. If you want to read a horror classic, I would definitely recommend Frankenstein over Dracula. But if you like vampires, then, Dracula. Unfortunately, I do not have Frankenstein with me because I got it from the library, but if you ever want to go read a classic or read Frankenstein, I cannot recommend it enough. Okay. The next book is 1984 by George Orwell. This is a very interesting book. Very interesting book. Okay. That was so loud. I'm so sorry. Okay. Sorry for that disruption. My phone fell. But okay. Okay. A deadly lassitude had taken hold of him. All he wanted to do was get home quickly and sit down and be quiet. It was after 22 hours when he got back to the flat. The lights would be switched off at the main at 23:30. He went to the kitchen and swallowed nearly a teacup full of Victory gin. Then he went to the table in the alcove, sat down, and took the diary out of the drawer. But he did not open it at once. From the television, a brassy female was squealing a patriotic song. He sat down staring at the marbled cover of the book, trying without success to shut the voice out of his consciousness. It was night that came for you, always at night. The proper thing was to kill yourself before they got to you. Undoubtedly, some people did. Many of the disappearances were actually suicides. but it needed desperate courage to kill yourself in a world where firearms or any quick and certain poison were completely unprocurable. He thought with a kind of astonishment of the biological uselessness of pain and fear, the treachery of the human body, which always freezes into inertia at always the moment when a special effort is needed. He might have silenced the dark-haired girl if he only had acted quickly enough, but precisely because of the extremity of his danger, he had lost the power to act. It struck him that in the moments of crisis, one is never fighting against an external enemy, but always against one's own body. Even now, in spite of the gin, the dull ache in his belly made consecutive thought impossible, and it is the same he perceived in all seemingly heroic or tragic situations. On the battlefield, in the torture chamber, on a sinking ship, the issue that you are fighting for are always forgotten, because the body swells up until it fills the universe, and even when you are not paralyzed by fright or screaming with pain, life is a moment-to-moment struggle against hunger, or cold, or sleepiness, against sour stomach or an aching tooth. Okay, one more page. Let's start here. Actually, no. Let's not do that part. Okay, let's do like a page in the front. Okay. He thought it must be at some time in the 60s, but it was impossible to be certain. In the party histories, of course, Big Brother figured as the leader and guardian of the revolution since its very earliest days. His exploits had been gradually pushed backwards in time until they extended into the fabulous world of the 40s and the 30s, when capitalists in their strange cylindrical hats still rode through the streets of London in great gleaming motor cars or horse carriages with glass sides. There is no knowing how much of this legend was true and how much invented. Winston could not even remember at what date the party itself had become into existence. He did not believe that he had ever heard the word Ingonsack before 1960, but it was impossible that there was an old speak form, English socialism. That is to say, it had been current earlier. Everything melted into mist. Sometimes, indeed, you can put your finger on a definite lie. It was not true, for example, as was claimed in the party history books, that the party had invented airplanes. He remembered airplanes since his earliest childhood, but you can prove nothing. There was never any evidence. Just once in his whole life he had held his hands in an unmistakable document full of proof of falsification of a historical fact, and on that occasion, Smith, screamed the shrewish voice from the telescreen. 6079 Smith W. Yes, you. Bend lower, please. You can do better than that. You're not trying. Lower, please. That's better, comrade. Now stand at ease, the whole squad, and watch me. A sudden hot sweat had broken all over Winston's body. His face remained inscrutable. Never show dismay. Never show resentment. A single flicker of the eyes could give you away. He stood watching while the instructress raised her arms above her head, and one could not say gracefully, but with remarkable neatness and efficiently, bend over and tuck the fist joint of her fingers under her toes.